Good, how are you?
Good, good. So I'm late. Alright. So, I'm the first content expert for you guys? Alright, so we are going to talk about customer discovery today. And to me, I always like to understand why. If you understand nothing, understand the why. Because once you get that, everything else kind of falls into place. That's always my philosophy. And so, I think it's important to spend a little bit of time up front just talking about why we do this stuff. I don't intend to teach you all the nuances of customer discovery. I don't think we can do that. And frankly, Steve Blank will teach that way better than I can. So I'm far more interested in really embedding the why in you guys, because you will go after this, you'll go and figure it out, right? You'll if you're motivated enough and you see the value in something, you'll go figure out how to do it. So that's really my interest is to get the why. So it's just a silly slide, but yeah, to me, customer development, you guys, the reason I titled this talk, the framework I wish I could go back in time and teach my former entrepreneurial self. If I could literally, I thought about this from the frame of, what if I had a time machine and I could go back 10 years ago before I did any startups and tell myself one thing? What would I tell myself? This is it. So to me, this, you guys are getting what I wish I would have known 10 years ago. So this stuff is so important. So first off, and I don't know how much he told you, but this is my background. I'm a native of Phoenix. I went to school in Texas, and I came back and did a couple different things. I didn't know anything about computers at this point, right? I was a psychology major in college, and then somewhere around my junior summer, I came back to an internship, and figured out that the internet to me was I was fascinated by it. What's going on? What was that? That's my RDO, yeah. What is this? Magical music? All right. It's not. Good so far. Anyways, I won't go through all these, but I've been through a lot of startups. Everything above the line is companies that I work at. The newspaper, I was employee number 5 at this one, high school. We did that one at 45, got acquired by Aldia. So I got to see a whole crazy roller coaster ride back in .com. I was the CTO of a talent scouting agency thing, which is still here. It's largest talent scout, I think, in wireless communications, sales logics at Pat Sullivan's company, later sold to Sage, was a 3D animator for a while, worked at this thing for hotels, and then everything below the line is after when I did stuff for myself. So created a party bus company, did my own consulting, creating custom web applications for people, dabbled with this music startup concept which failed. This one is still around. It's a 7-year-old company, so this is the one kind of modest success that I've actually had. This one had a little bit of success. Obviously, short sales are no longer around, thankfully, so this one went away. And this is actually my current focus, which is grid stuff. It's what I do now. It's kind of a mix of pre-product market fit and post-product market fit activities to help people like you guys succeed. So that's my background. Again, understanding the why is so critical. Has anyone seen this talk by Simon Sinek? Right? If you haven't watched the whole thing, take the 15 minutes or whatever it is to go watch it. I think it's this thing triggers. This thing advances the slides and plays music, so I'm just quit this music. Oh, and it's playing on my phone. That's what it is. That's crazy. Whoa. All right. All technology off. Anyways.
I did, I checked, but I can't find this alarm. It's hidden in my phone somewhere. I just turned it off.
That's going to get, by December, that's going to get really old. So anyways, watch this talk if you haven't seen it. It's well worth it, but it's all about getting that rooted why, because that becomes the cornerstone and all this other stuff kind of flows from it. So again, why do I believe customer development? Why am I such an advocate of this? I run the Lean Startup Circle for Phoenix, you guys. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is. It's Lean startup is kind of there's overlap and it's related to the customer development stuff, but it's another movement, has a lot of the same principles. And I'm a firm believer in it. Here's why. Because I believe that what you're doing right now, like I am such an advocate of startups. And I think like change doesn't happen through corporate, being a cog in some corporate job. It just doesn't. Like the real leaps are going to occur from people like you guys that are doing, taking a risk and doing your own thing. Like you have a vision and you're trying to go after it. Simultaneously, I know that this is going to be the single hardest thing you ever do, right? So it's like the greatest promise, the greatest potential here also has the least likelihood of working. And if I can help even just 5%, like move the needle and maybe like short circuit some of the lessons or some of the bad, mistakes that you guys have made, then that's going to increase the likelihood of this working out, and that is just a huge win forever. I climbed a 20,000-foot volcano down in Ecuador, and this, like building a startup has been 100 times harder than that. I can just tell you that, like it's the hardest thing I've ever done. All right, so specifically today, what we're focusing on, so this is the book. Have you guys, how much experience have you had with Steve Blank or exposure? Any at all?
We discussed this slide yesterday.
Okay. Probably the best thing you can do in your off hours, I know this is all consuming, it eats probably everything and whatnot. Best thing you can do would be to go take his 6-hour course, Steve Blank. You Google Steve Blank Udacity. That course is free. He teaches all this stuff. And if you have your head around that, like I looked at your guys' syllabus and a lot of it, that they're going to follow this model. So the more you can understand about this, the better, the more sensible everything will be. So that would be my recommendation. Today we're going to focus on the pre-product market fit, the left side of the equation. So it's basically figure it out and then grow it. That's the distinction, right? So we're in the blue section here of figuring out your business model, search, and then specifically, blow that up. Anyways, blow this piece up, and now it's all about the customer discovery, is what we're talking about today. So, and here's the deal, like the reason, again, apathy, it's not like you're gonna, like competitors, even though you think that that's who you're up against, it's apathy. Like truthfully, when you're figuring something new out, it's not even competition, it's like, do people even care what you're doing? So, like, I think of these skills that we're talking about here, like this is a good overview to have of things and like understand how it all fits together. Customer development, of which customer discovery is a subset, is kind of like your survival skills. It's kind of like your ability to interface and unearth the problem space and figure things out. The lean startup stuff that I mentioned is almost like a compass. It's how you constantly realign to true north. It's like how you know you're on the right track. And then the business model canvas, which you guys will probably go through in depth, is almost like your map that you flesh out as you make this journey, right? And it's like this living scorecard of understanding about aspects of the business. And so we'll kind of touch on a little bit of this now. So customer development. And you probably already went through some of this stuff yesterday, but I'm just going to rehash just a few things so we all have the same understanding of it. It came from Steve Blank. This guy wrote a book called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Horribly written book. Like so many typos, so like unedited. I don't know who his editor was, but they should be fired. But the ideas in this book were super powerful. He later wrote this, the Startup Owner's Manual, which is like the sequel 10 years later to that book, and had an editor for this one, so it reads a lot better. But this course and his Udacity course, it's like he sat back and he was a part of these startups that made it. And so he sat back and like tried to observe like what were the consistent things we did, what were the design patterns here at work, and he was able to distill these basically like a framework for doing entrepreneurship. So his whole thing, I'm sure you'll hear this 1,000 times, get out of the building, like answers don't exist within these walls, you're gonna be here most of the time, but realistically, this is speculative territory. The only place where things are getting like confirmed or refuted is outside the building, so you wanna talk to your potential customers. Focus on the problem like, don't fall in love with your solution. I went to your guys' kickoff and I saw everyone up there and talking about like their venture and the greatest thing. And it's like, that's where, like, that's today's understanding. That's what you believe today. But recognize that that is a transient thing. That is like your current best guess as to how to solve this. It's not going to look anything like that. Even 4 months from now, it's going to look very different. With the exception of Kate, because actually, having looked at all the companies here, it seems like she's the closest in terms of product market fit, and she's really more onto the growth stage, right? She's got customers and people love her, and like she's now got something. It's more of an awareness challenge. So she's probably the only one that's at that stage. Yeah, and so CusDev is really the framework for doing entrepreneurship. That graph that I had up there before with the 4 steps, you can think of those almost like orbits. Like you don't advance to the next one until you've achieved enough escape velocity from that first one. And so really try to think of it that way. Make more sense. So this is the Steve Blank's course. Again, highly recommended. If you Google that, it's the first thing that comes up. And also, I'll make these slides available if you want them for whatever they're worth. I'll get into the working afterwards. Okay. So this is the phase we're focused on. The difference between these two, it's basically, this is where you're forming your hypotheses. This is where you're validating. This is an art, this is a science. It's very simple. Like that's the distinction. And this, I would argue, this is probably the hardest part of customer development. So it's cool we get to talk about it. I'm not gonna, like, this is all very theoretical right now. We're talking academically about this. My goal is to get through this quickly and then spend as much time today as we can actually doing some real stuff. I think that's when you actually start to internalize it. So hopefully someone will volunteer and will be able to go through their, do this for them. So customer discovery, it's not about, has anyone seen the Jeffrey Moore thing with like crossing the chasm and you have this big distribution curve? You know what I'm talking about? Is there a whiteboard?
Is it diffusion of innovation?
Yeah, exactly. So there's this thing, we don't have a whiteboard here, do we?
We do, but it's outside.
Okay.
Do you want me to roll it?
We'll need it at some point, so maybe some.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so
laggards.
the laggards, right. So there's this basic picture of bell curve, and it's like when you introduce your product, you're on the left side of this, and so you're just hitting the very little sliver of people who actually care about what you're doing and who you can get to and who are going to like embrace what you have. And then the vast majority is like exist in the bell part of this curve. So you got the early adopters, the early majority, late majority, and then the laggards of these people at the tail end of it. Early evangelists, the point of customer development is to get to this person who's very far left side of this, who's just like the person who's so much in pain right now or so much in love with what you're doing that they'll put up with it being a crappy, suboptimal product, right? And those people are called early evangelists. And they have this, like there's kind of these, almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like these stages of how badly they need what you have, right? So it's the person who has a problem but doesn't know it, who now recognizes they have a problem, who is actively searching for a solution, who's cobbled together something on their own that doesn't, because they know it's such a pain that they've actually tried to fix it, and ultimately you want someone who actually has a budget to pay for it, so, right?
I was just going to say that I have actually a giant white piece of paper and I have the innovation right on my wall. And when I meet people, if someone's like a total bitch or like say I don't get it, I'll just write their name really small on the laggards. And the people that are really supportive, I write it. So I have this growing list of people. And I think maybe at some point, maybe my laggard will move to the next phase and these people will send me attention.
Yeah, and the lesson is like, don't worry about people that are on this side. It's like, you're your energy should not be equally spent. Like if we're envisioning that bell curve, don't think of it as trying to reach everyone simultaneously. Think of it as, I don't care about anyone to the right of these early adopter people right now. I'm just not going to worry about
And
them.
put them on ice.
Yeah, just put them on ice. Like you said, throw them in that bucket, mentally kind of attribute that and be like, okay, we're not talking right now. down here, I put these pictures, waste, risk, and uncertainty. Like the whole goal, if all this, if you take nothing more away from what we're talking about today, is to reduce waste. Waste comes in the form of misspent calories, chasing the wrong thing, spending money on development for an iPhone app or whatever that just is not the right thing. So the whole goal of everything we do is to reduce waste and just to peel off the risk and uncertainty as much as we can. Okay, so let's start to talk about like real, so what? Like, tell me what do we do? After I leave today, what are you guys gonna do next? This is a ridiculous photo, but yeah. So I'm actually, I am like not an extrovert. As weird as that sounds, like being up here talking to you guys in front of it. Like I don't just at a party. I'm not the one who's like life of the party talking and like I'm comfortable in any situation. So doing customer development is not something that's like comes natural to me. But there are things you can do to make it happen. Right, so I don't know, is there anyone else here who's like not entirely comfortable approaching strangers and like doing this stuff? Okay, so here's just like a random idea to start your brain turning about like how do we make this real? Like how do we start actually talking to people and getting this feedback? Go to Starbucks, sit or local coffee shop. Go to some one of our Roosevelt, one of those local places. Sit down with a sign that says, look, I built this cool thing and I'd love some feedback and I'll buy your coffee if you spend 5 minutes with me. Like put yourself in places where the types of people that could be your customers are gonna congregate, and then just figure out whatever that clever saying or sign or thing is to broach that conversation with them and just start getting dialogues. Because what you wanna do is get the ball rolling and start asking these questions like, and don't even lead with your solution. Like don't lead the witness, right? Don't throw something out there that's gonna like falsely give you some like, oh, maybe this is what they want, Like start with, hey, so I have this idea, but I want to learn more about you. Like, tell me more about it. Do you have this problem? What's your venture?
It's spiritual,
Okay. So tell me what do you think about politics right now? How does this work? It's like have you ever been frustrated by the inconsistency of how people voted and then what they actually did and Oh, really? Okay, so tell me more about it. What annoys you about that? What was the impact of that? Provided we can fix that, what do you think that would translate to for our country? Start having this conversation that unearths their feelings about it and the impact, and then dig in on the problem and really forget about a web page that rates XYZ things or any of that. Just start to understand the problem. That is the beginning of customer development. Okay. So once you have these people in front of you, once you're at, I can't even think of a coffee shop, right? Fair trade coffee. We're sitting there, we've got someone in front of us, we're talking, we're asking these questions, we're unearthing the problem. This is the business model of Canvas. Have you guys seen this yet? Okay. So we're squarely focused on this box at that point in the interview, but be cognizant that there's all these other quadrants that you're basically going to figure out over time. But right now, all we're concerned about is digging this up more. And basically, I think of it like wandering into a dark room where you don't even know the boundaries of that room, and you're trying to determine what is in there and what's the landscape like. Gradually start to introduce, you have a vision for the solution, right? You have your venture, you have this idea, you think that the answer to this problem about voting and inconsistency and whatever is, I've got a website and it's going to work this way and it's going to let people rate things like this and they're going to communicate in their classes to their friends maybe, and I don't know how it works, but you've got a vision for how that's going to be. And once you get them and you verify that they truly believe that that problem is real, now introduce your solution and say, hey, what if we did, I want to show you something. I want to show you this sketch, maybe not even a real app, but it's hey, what if there's a website that did this? Or what if we could solve and it worked this way? And you start to basically match your solution with the problem that they perceive. And now you're getting into validating, is your thing the right answer to it, right? Have you guys talked through each one of these boxes so far? So basically, the lesson here is that in the back of your mind, when you're having these interviews, know what you're focusing on and really be like conscious about what you're trying to learn at any given point. Whether it's on the problem, or maybe you've moved on to the solution, or now maybe you're collecting data on actually the people, like the segments of people that you're reaching, how you're going to get to them. Like, be very conscious of what it is you're trying to learn about. And then this is like, when you're, I don't know, I'm sure you guys feel this, but like there's so much to do at this point, right? You're on like the very beginning of this marathon. You're on like yard 1, right? Like, where do you even start? Like, startups are all about lining things up in the right order and doing the things that matter first, like that matter the most first. So it's like, where do you even begin to tackle all this? The answer to that is start where the greatest risk to your business lies. And we'll hopefully go through a few examples here with people in the room. It's going to be different for every one of you. It may be technology risk. Can you actually even build this thing? It may be market risk. Do people care about it at all? It may be, great, there's a problem here. Like, we know there's politics the way they are now. We know there's a problem, but what is the, what's the method to reach people with our solution? Maybe we have the perfect solution to this, but no viable path to get to. So you want to start basically where the greatest risk. You identify the quadrant that has like the most cloudiness and risk to your model. I just filled in. I did a talk for Game CoLab where we were actually focused on purely game designers and doing their stuff. And this turned out to be the areas that were most risky for them. It wasn't, can we build these games? Can we make this stuff? Do people want entertainment? Those were all kind of like, we know that. The risk was all in like, who are our customers? How do we reach them? How are we actually going to build these games? There's something in Eric Ries's book in the Lean Startup called Build, Measure, Learn. I actually think it's learn, build, measure. Whether that order matters, it's an iterative loop. So in theory, like once you start it, it doesn't really matter. But learn as much as you can before you build something. Don't just go blindly build the thing you think and then put it out there. Start with, okay, so, and this is like a really important slide, so actually you probably want to write this down. Start with, where does the greatest uncertainty lie, and what is the risk to the success of the venture? So that's your question. So then from that flows, what are some testable hypotheses we can form to de-risk this? And then from that, what data would we need to confirm or refute these hypotheses? I'll let you know when it's done. You can take a picture. What experiments we need to conduct in order to collect that data? I'll go run those experiments. And there's one. I'm just a mess. Rinse and repeat, right? Because this is an iterative loop. We're going to go through this many times. So this is the thinking. And what we're doing here, if you think about it, it's like we know where we want to be. We want to have the right solution, right? So now we're kind of reverse engineering our way to get there. We're backing into what does it take to have the right product? And we take on this like mindset of experimentation where it's not about building the perfect thing right out of the gate. It's about thinking, what is the greatest risk to my business? Okay, great. It's the market. No, does this problem exist? Let's say. So it's in the problem space. Okay, so we're focused on that quadrant. Okay, so we need to figure out, does this problem really exist for people? So what are the experiments we need to run? Like, what data we need to know that? Okay, we need to get at least 40% of all people saying, yes, I hate politics and I'd be willing to pay for an app if I thought it could fix the problem. Okay, great. That's what we're trying to now That's the hypothesis. So what data do we need to actually have the answer to that question? You know, how do we collect that? What experiments we can run? How to just go do it? Go do these experiments. So that's the thought process. All right, so I was horrible at calculus, by the way, so I don't even know if this is the right thing. But I just made it. Fidelity of the prototype is a function of your objective divided by your constraints. And what I mean by that is, don't overbuild. Like, use literally like a paper sketch could be adequate. It depends on what you're trying to learn at any given point. So don't like go build a whole app or even like mock up a high fidelity prototype. Just figure out what you're actually trying to learn at that point and do the bare minimum to learn. Right? So this could be perfectly adequate, and maybe this ultimately evolves into something a little more like this is balsamic mockups. It's a little bit still low, right? It's a sketch. It's kind of a conceptual sketch of what we're doing still, but it's you can make this clickable, and that evolves into maybe something more like you constructed in Illustrator that's then clickable, and then it becomes a real app. So the point is, shoot as low as you can to learn what you need, but expending the least hours. That's the whole goal. These are just some apps like I found. These are really awesome. Kinotopia, has anyone played around with that at all or know what it is? Okay, so this, do you guys all have Macs or does anyone, there's a VPCs, okay. So they make it for PowerPoint now too, so it's available on both. But this is an awesome thing. Basically what it allows you to do is mock up interfaces for whatever it is you're proposing. And actually, how many people are doing like physical businesses versus software website? Are you software? So everyone doing software is right? And physical business. Okay. But you have software components to do that. And I'm assuming that everyone with a physical business probably will have like a website or something. Okay. So this is awesome for not having to build, like not having to pay a developer to create something. You go out and you mock it up what you have in mind. You sit down with people and ideally do it in person with them so you can see body language and stuff and click through. You can make it in PowerPoint or in Keynote where you can actually like click through so it feels like an actual web page or feels like a software or iPhone application. Click around it and this is so useful. Envision is an app I use for doing that. If you can't be in person with your prospective customers, you can do it online. You can actually link up clickable prototypes. And so you actually send out a link and people go through and it looks like a web page and they click around through it and they can leave feedback and comment right in line. It's really useful. And then this is free. This is actually, this is an interesting thing. It's on the iPhone. If we have time afterwards, I'll show you how it works. But basically you can sketch out an interface, take a picture, like take a couple pictures of your iPhone and then make it clickable. And you can actually like in 5 minutes make a little clickable app with your iPhone. It's really cool. But I mean, the value of that then is you can be sitting with someone, you can have an idea, something you hadn't thought of before sparks to mind, and in 5 minutes you can make it real, and you can actually get to consensus and showing them and say, hey, would this maybe solve what we're talking about? Yeah, awesome. So that kind of,
I'm sorry, is that only available on iOS or is that Android as well?
I believe it's Android, actually. I know it's Android. Last night I checked it.
So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's all the academic stuff. Good riddance. Let's talk about real stuff. We're going to use a fictitious example before we talk about your guys' stuff, and here's why. I don't want you guys to get married to your ideas. Like, they're the current thing, but I really want you to decouple and think about this like the skill that we're learning right now is completely independent of your idea, and your idea is just a transient thing. It's the current snapshot of understanding. So we're going to use maybe a harebrained, fictitious example. So let me explain what we're going to do. So I'm standing in the shower the other day and just thinking, and I'm really like trying to think about problems. I'm trying to not think about the next Twitter feed app thing or whatever, like the nonsense that we built. But like, what are really like societal problems? Like, what are the things that are hurting our society? And my grandmother had a fall a couple years ago. She's 97 years old. She actually survived. She was like 94 when she had her fall. But she slipped in the shower and fortunately actually didn't fracture her hip with some other injury she had. But I started like reading about hip fractures, and I don't know if you guys know this, but this is like a huge problem. Like they say someone after the, or yeah, above the age of 75, if you get a hip fracture, you have a 25% mortality rate. So 1 in 4 people are going to actually die, not necessarily from hip fracture, but from the complications of the surgery to fix the hip fracture. 1 out of 2 will walk again after that. So in terms of like loss of life and the loss of quality of life, it is a huge problem. So in keeping with this idea of like not fixating on a solution, but like start with the problem. Like if we can all agree that that's a pretty big problem, then okay, so what are some ideas for solutions? And I'm sitting there in the shower, and I don't even know how this game is, but I'm like, how do people fall? I'm trying to think like what that would actually look like. How does this go down? Like slip, or you know, like rubber mats, or da da da. Like what is the answer here? And thinking like, okay, what if like the shower curtain next to me were actually like something that would wrap me up, like in the event where I actually fell, like what if it could like Venus flytrap me, like catch me from falling? And so I started thinking about this, and I remember there's this thing that my parents had for getting lids off the top of their bottles when you couldn't like unscrew them very easily. And so I just kind of had this wacky idea. I'm like, well, what if you could make this shower curtain that would like wrap you up and be really strongly anchored into the wall and like keep you from falling? So that's the idea, right? We're going to take this fictitious example, and I don't know. Like I looked around, I don't think this exists. I didn't find a patent for it. Maybe someone, if your venture doesn't work out, go try this. But let's just like go through the exercise of thinking about this as the beginning. Okay, so let's start here. What would we do right now? If this is our venture. Let's figure out, where does the greatest risk lie in this venture?
Senior citizens.
What is it?
Marketing.
Marketing of it? Maybe. Other. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
People believing it.
People
Making sure
believing
the
it?
problem or problem.
So
Making sure the problem is a problem.
make sure the problem is a problem. I agree with that statement. Well, okay, so we know, okay, problem about hip fractures, is it real? I'm pretty sure it's real. Like I did some reading, and the sources that I read, I don't think they're lying to me. I think that like this truly is a big deal.
Don't you have to build a prototype to prove that it works?
This is what I would say, yeah. Does our solution actually solve this problem? Like, I don't think there's any risk around the problem, actually. I can with certainty tell you that hip fractures are occurring, and they're very severe. Does the solution that we're proposing actually solve the problem? That is where I would argue is the greatest risk in this thing. So how might we go? If we can all agree on that, does that seem like a reasonable assumption? Okay. So if we can all agree, we're now squarely focused on just this box. Everything else, forget about it. Does this solution solve it? What hypotheses do we have at this point? That this rubberized curtain is going to somehow prevent like a significant number of hip fractures. So what are the inherent assumptions in that hypothesis?
Quick question. People break their hips other ways. Why?
Well, that was
in the shower. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
what percentage of hip fractures happen in the bathroom?
There you go, right? Yeah, exactly. So some questions we've got in this video. Perfect. What else? That is you're right on point. That is a huge question. That would be the first question that we would ask.
What material would work to hold somebody?
Yep. Well, let's think. Maybe how about what? Provided we pass this, right? Because these are basically like filters. This is question number 1, and this is probably the very first place we'd start.
Okay, sometimes we down that list, right?
Yep. Let's go next. What is the, provided we get a significant, let's say 50% of hip fractures occur in the shower, and let's even just say 20%. That's still a huge number of people, right? So this is still worth exploring.
So what existing mechanisms are in existence that actually will solve that problem? A sit-down bathtub where you walk in, you know, it has a door and you walk in and you sit down, so it's not a shower anymore. You just sit there, try a shower.
I would argue that there's one more before that.
Okay.
There's a filter that's gonna occur before we get that. And we're thinking like total addressable market here.
Where is it at?
So what percent of hip fractures occur in the shower? A good number do. So now we're thinking about people who have showers. What's the next filter on that? What kind of showers are there?
All the showers, the curtains, the showers.
Right? Yep. Okay. So now, right, all we're doing is limiting, constraining who we're actually talking to at this point, and worrying about, right? Okay,
This
so,
angle is like how many shower curtains can we pull up a weight of like 100 pounds? Like a bath, you know what I mean?
yeah, well, my answer there is if we make the solution right, it has to do with how we actually anchor the
Yeah.
curtain rod and all that stuff, so it's not necessarily a limiting factor at this point. Okay, so of these, how many could be fitted with curtains, right? All right, now I think this is a good thing. Like, what existing mechanisms are for these people? I've seen there's like wheel-in bathtubs and things like that, little benches that sit down and stuff. So learn about the space. What existing mechanisms for this? Perfect. It matters in the sense that if we determine at this point, like nobody uses shower curtains anymore, or like elderly, I don't know, like there's some other
percentage of the age of over 70 have a shower. Or
Yeah.
1%.
yeah, some factor that makes this like not a viable thing. And you could just say, look, this problem is so great that even if I helped the 100 people that would have fallen in this category, I still want to do it as my business, and I can figure out a way to make it work. Great, go for it. But this is like all data that is informing your decision on whether to move forward at this point.
What about hazardous hip fractures in the showers occur? Tripping, slipping,
Yep.
soaking the eyes.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I would go with that. Yeah. That's awesome.
It might be about the curtain, to be quite honest with you, because then you can create a different product, like a slip mat, as opposed to a curtain.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Or you could even have a curtain that instead of it jumping off and wrapping around, it becomes a curtain that you can actually grab onto and hold yourself up to steady yourself.
Right. Yep. So actually, yeah, you know what? You guys caught me on this. Like, I'm already jumping to thinking about my solution in terms of we should really be fixate on the problem at this point.
How do they occur?
How do they occur? What does this space look like? Yep.
Yeah, if you find out that, 80% of them are because they faked it, then nothing's really gonna help them unless you put a rubberized tube on the bottom or something.
Or maybe at that point, okay, so now that you're thinking of it, so fainting, so we're not gonna know, there's not like they're gonna fall through there, like maybe there's some kind of bungee thing that they actually like wear when they get in the shower. I don't know, maybe, right? But like, we're starting to think about
Like,
like,
you can have the whole shower with floaties.
Yeah.
Floaties.
yeah, I don't know what the
Sleeping
solution
in
is.
the straps.
What's around the shower?
What's around the shower?
Like, are they falling onto something?
Yeah, like,
Counter,
is
are
it-
they hitting a counter, a toilet,
Yeah, I would say like, how is this injury occurring exactly? Okay, so let's start to deconstruct each one of these. So where are we gonna get this data? Is this
Surveying that our internet
Hospitals.
right? We could, I would say we can solve this without going anywhere. We can Google this and figure this out, right? How are we gonna get this data?
yeah, for fall rehabs.
Yep.
I would think go somewhere with a hospital or urgent care, probably poll a number of individuals or a number of organizations that have had these people come in
Look, the pod will know that.
Yep. I think you can do some research, but I would absolutely advocate at this point on this question, going and talking to, go to a hospice, go to, people that deal with the repercussions of hip fractures and start like digging in.
Paramedics blog.
Yeah.
Along those lines, 'cause they're the first responders.
Yep.
We're figuring out if they're falling because of the shower.
Right. Interview, maybe even interview the hip fracture people that you can. That would be firsthand. Well, no, the people that fell though are going to be your like primary.
Those are showers that fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do people who fall in showers have in common? Is that just like a dad and a
I think we were talking specifically over a specific age, like the age of 70 or something like your grandmother. So that's
Yeah, but maybe from a customer segment perspective, that's interesting because maybe, maybe they all have a higher incidence of osteoporosis. I think that would be a fair assumption, right? So, yeah, absolutely. Like, do some demographic. Totally. Awesome. Yeah, so these are all, you can see the thought process though. You can see how we're trying to stay focused on the problem, we're digging, we're having conversations. What we learn in these conversations, we go to this hospice and we talk to these folks and they tell us how they occur. That's going to alter then, we're going to go back up and we're going to start thinking differently about the whole space. And you can see we didn't go out and build this silly rubberized shower curtain, right? That probably wouldn't get anywhere. But we're in the course of pursuing that vision though, we're now asking the questions that really help us zero in on the right capability. Cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the beginning, we were talking about step number 1. And so we said, just finding the solution.
Sorry. In the very beginning, you want to fixate on the problem. It's like you have a vision for the solution, and so keep that in the back of your mind, but like realistically forget about it. Like learn about the problem space, and then once you verify that there is a problem, the goal is to match your solution to see if that truly addresses the problem. If that's
And these questions are these questions are thinking towards the solution or towards the problem? Or is it? if
you're
I
just
ask-
trying to understand the problem at this point.
So I'm asking questions about the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I do this stuff, and you saw how I skipped to the like questioning about the curtain, like how many showers are fitted with curtains.
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's wrong. Like because we shouldn't even have a vision of the solution in our head when we're interviewing these people at that point. We should be learning about the problem. So do we want to try this, or are there any more questions on this? We want to try one maybe with one of your guys' ventures. Yeah, 2. We'll do as many as we can. So you guys, cool. All right. All right. So what? You want to go first?
Yeah.
All right.
So, college students save money.
What is it?
It's all college students save money, and like for housing, groceries, bars, nightclubs, all that kind of stuff. Also Texas, they can trade roommates. It's like a hub for helping college students save money as well as find jobs.
Okay. And say the name of the venture again.
All college.
All college. Okay.
And also is for businesses to market in a local setting using mobile technology. So.
Okay. Okay. Let's do. Okay. So where does it stand? Where are you at with it right
We are in prototype stage. We stopped because, like you said, we don't want to waste time or money to finish it. So now we're just going around to customers, getting feedback. We got a lot of good feedback actually, and then we're once we perfect that and show them some of the screenshots and stuff, we're gonna try to finish the product once we have enough customer feedback.
now? Okay. And so your problem that you're solving is students, basically like starving students. You're helping them save more money.
Yeah, and like housing, almost every almost every aspect of life.
Okay. So what is your state, like your unique value proposition, or like what your solution you're proposing?
the solution.
Yeah.
So the solution is a mobile application website that has deals in 12 categories unique to student life. So like there's beauty, there's hair care, groceries, housing, all that stuff. And then for businesses, there's business profiles where they can reach out and have job opportunities and deal calendars and post deals in those sections. So college students, if they ever want, if they're trying to save money and they're about to eat, they can hit the dining section and then that'll pop up and they'll be able to see the deals around campus to make sure that they can save money.
Okay. So I guess like my immediate reaction to this concept is there's no technology risk here. You can build this. There's no doubt that college students want to save money. There's a way to do that. Your greatest challenge is going to be in rising above the noise with everything else that you're competing with, right? Because there's a million Groupon is a huge, Deal Chicken, all these other things. That's who you're competing with. And then there's just the awareness and apathy. Like, people don't know what you do and don't care. So your wedge here is you need to figure out. It's like you almost don't even. The problem is them, right? It's like what is the unique differentiator that you're proposing that's actually going to get you on the radar? Okay, so let me think for a second. Have you talked with a bunch of students at this point?
We've talked to a good amount. I mean, we talked to 30 last week, and 29 out of 30 said they use it, and then one of them said that he doesn't have a phone, like a smartphone. That's the only reason he wouldn't. 30 out of 30 said they're looking for deals and promotions.
Sure. Right, so there's no uncertainty there, right? Like,
No.
So I would say don't talk to any more students.
The biggest thing, like you said, is to make it clear how we're different than other companies, as well as one of our key revenue streams, which is the hotspots that we have in each category. How we think businesses interested in using us versus going to like Groupon. For us, like we're lazy, like college students are lazy, in my opinion. Our generation, we don't want to go redeem codes on Groupon. Like that's too much work. I would never do that.
Right.
In fact, I don't know any of my friends who use Groupon. But they'll definitely pull up the phone and be like, they're already on the phone and they're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry, and they slide the screen and all in college, they're like, oh shit, there's a deal.
Okay.
Something bar in public. No one goes to Groupon in my generation.
Okay. So then
I never talked to them, I'll be honest. So.
Okay, so if we're saying
Exactly. No one. So that, we've asked. That's exactly it.
So is it fair to say that your greatest risk is differentiating from the competitors that are out there and then just general reaching awareness, reaching people with information?
Yeah, especially businesses like trying to.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, is like, you almost don't need to talk to any more students, right? Like, the persons that, the people that you need to convince at this point are the businesses, why they should listen to you. And you don't even wanna convince them at this point, you wanna, again, go learn about, what are you guys currently using? Like, how do you get people in the door?
And what do you want?
How's your experience with Groupon been? How did that work out for you? Oh, you had a lot of low quality clients and a lot of repercussions from that weren't good. Okay, tell me more about that, right? So you're now digging in on the vendor side of this equation. And it's probably easier for you to talk to students because they're more on your same level right now, but the people you need to be talking to are the businesses.
You should ask them what their current relationship is with college students, if they want more college students in their doors.
Peanut Jungle, they closed, or not Peanut Jungle, Peanut Pit, whatever that one that was right across the street. Yeah, where the Chop Shop. They talked to them and I would say it was some crazy numbers. 70% of their business came from people using Sun cards, and now Sun card's not an issue anymore. It's there's no such thing as a Sun card. So they lost all their business and they went out of business. So that's a huge issue for them. Because people that accept $1, they were getting business from college students.
Why did they quit that? Why did they stop using Sun cards?
Because MidFirst Bank is now
Yeah, some colleges were putting local businesses out because they were taking like 20% or something.
Yeah.
Or like.
But I used some when I was, I was a freshman. And, everyone did actually. But when they took that out, obviously that, for us, is a good thing. Like, it's what that does is actually allow more money, cash money to be spent in the college market versus some product.
That it's also more attractive on an issue of the corporation for student spending, like if you want to attract a corporation, just be like, hey, if you have this thing to help students save, try to get it in ASU somehow.
Yeah, it's way harder than I thought. We can try. It's they're, unless I feel like they're like, until you are successful, they don't want to put their name on it. But
So then the
that's
key,
something we have to deal with is trying to figure out how to, because we want to get on orientation. That's one of our big goals is to get on the student orientation so that you're like, hey, if you want to learn about deals and all this stuff, go check out All College. Like at the end of the PowerPoint, we tell them about things around campus.
yeah, and that's for sure a good outlet for you if you can get on there, but that's also not the solution to this necessarily. So let's get some questions for him actually up here. You can go out today if you wanted to and start asking. So I think this is a good, whoever said that. What's your current relationship with college students?
How are you going to integrate with the point of sale system for businesses to?
Can you talk louder?
I would say kind of that's more solution oriented, so let's try to stick around the problem. So $7 going away, that's a really interesting insight. Like ask them what were the ramifications when that happened, like how did that impact your number of college students that you're getting? What have you done since then to compensate for that? Or is the college market interesting to you? Do you want college students? Maybe they don't want college students. If that's the case, then they're not someone you should be talking to.
So what are your major target businesses? I mean, I know you mentioned bars and restaurants. Are there any other, like clothing retailers, things of that?
Clothing, housing, obviously bar, dining, nightlife. I mean, all the sections are targets. Sure. I would say there's probably, those 5 are like the big things college students would say on the groceries, even maybe. That's probably the only thing I would use. Some other pretty good.
I would say hyper niche it to one thing.
Yeah.
You're shotgunning, you're thinking from the perspective of like everything a college student might want to use. And the way that this is going to work best is if you own a particular niche and then go laterally from there.
Yeah, I think one of our problems is we saw a lot of competition that already has done that.
Yeah.
We're trying to, be different in the sense of having all of it, but, we've heard that a lot is to simplify the amount of deals or the categories and just focus on one thing, so.
So what competitor categories did you see?
Like dining.
So it's grocery store. So that's the biggest reason why you would be there.
Yeah, but we
There
didn't.
is one?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that, no. But I don't think when we interviewed the students, that was not their top choice. It was the ones that, that we named, our clothing, dining, and those.
How might you narrow down that subset? If we can agree that, okay, so actually first question is, are you still you're still thinking that going broad is the right approach, or are you?
I don't know.
You don't
I mean,
know.
if you think that it's better to get, I've talked to a lot of people who say simplify it. But I've also talked to people who are like, you would be different by saying, they wouldn't be using 6 different sites to get deals, they just go to yours. And they'd have all of that, so.
Right. I can just tell you, like anecdotally, with the company that we built with Jumpbox, we set out to solve the issue of open source software being so hard to use. And we did it. We made these virtual appliances, and we came to this really creative way of packaging open source software. And then we said, this is great. Like, literally every business is our customer. Anyone who has a business should buy our subscription. And so we had this super scatter-focused approach where it's like, we've got the greatest thing, everyone should want it. And you know what that does? That makes your marketing challenge like impossible. And we learned that the hard way. So to the extent you can, even though it's artificially constrained, that you can do a deal site for all these things, pick one vertical that you can own and be like, we are the cheapest way to do laundry as a college student, or whatever it is. Like something that's just so hyper niche, and just own that mental real estate amongst the college population. And once you own that, once you're like, oh yeah, why, like you don't have an all college laundry pass, like this is the best way to do laundry. Like I know that's not what you want to be, but that's the path, right? Like so pick, maybe that's not it, but pick something. Cheapest way to get pizza as a college student, I don't know, but own that first and then expand laterally from there. Like trust me, that's the way to go. So here's what I was going to say is how might we go about, like as a group, think how might we limit figure out the right place for him to start.
Find out where college dollars are going, and then find out, because retail, if you think about retail, it's like college kids are trying to save money. They're not necessarily going to be going out and spending a bunch of money on clothes. Like, maybe that's probably what you got to ask them. But it's like, what are the basic needs that they're spending their money on, and like how much can you save them on that need?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I would go back and survey college kids and find out what percentage of their expendable income that, it's not spent on rent, it's not spent on laundry detergent, it's not spent on stuff they absolutely need. What percentage of their expendable income is on that, is the highest? And what category is the highest of their expendable income?
But, springing off of that, what if it is rent and laundry?
But that's not expendable income.
Well, maybe usage you could focus on and say, where most of the money's being spent, and that's a big pain point.
So it's like a couple variables, I think. It's definitely like the total amount of dollars, looking at it from the perspective of like where are dollars going, and let's filter it out at least by ones where there's like a sizable like amount being spent that we can worry about, right? So I think that's a good filter. I think the next filter would be what can we realistically, like from the perspective of the vendors, where they're paying and getting students in, because that's going to affect their willingness to compromise and do deals, right? People like bars on Mill that are already flooded by all these college students aren't going to be very receptive to a startup saying, hey, we can get you more college students, right? But maybe the laundromats on the fringes of campus that don't currently get a lot of people, now you got their ear because they're like, well, yeah, we love you, have more students in here to talk to them, tell me more. So at least you're in the door with those people. So I'd say like,
Find which merchants want them.
what's that?
Find which merchants want how to get.
Yeah, like, or I just say more generically, like, which merchants have the most pain right now around this, right? And I would pick, like, I would start with maybe 10 verticals and then actually go talk to just a few people from each. And those conversations, I think you'll see patterns that emerge that say, yeah, you know what, every laundromat person I talk to is like, this is a huge deal and we're trying to figure out how to get more people in here. Or they'll say like, no, this isn't an issue, right? But you'll see a cluster of resonance in one of those verticals, and that's the one you should start with.
But test out a lot of categories, get feedback, and once you find one that's, the best, you focus on that one.
Yeah. It's good. Because doing it any other way, like has anyone seen that movie Sliding Doors? Like, one House Road or Butterfly Effect is another one of those, kind of like they explore these parallel realities. I try to think, because at this point we don't know how this is going to play out. So one way of dealing with this is to think about like the parallel paths that this could be taking, and envision today going out the way that we're suggesting, where it's like pick one and just do that, and try to envision, okay, we find the vertical, we're now doing something specific to that, we're working with those people, we know how to reach the vendor now, it's pretty clear, like we have a stronger brand in the mind of the students, we actually occupy some mental real estate, and da-da-da. So picture that path. And then picture the other path, which is we're going broad, we do all these things, we're essentially like, I guess like Sun Dollars would maybe be, you're trying to be a replacement for Sun Dollars essentially. And think about like the marketing challenges involved in reaching those vendors and getting buy-in from the students and owning that. It's just like, to me, thinking through both of those paths, this one is so much clearer to me, like how you get there. Whereas this one, it's like, man, there's so much uncertainty right now.
so much to do.
So much, yeah, so much to do. I don't know. Does anyone know how $10 started? Did they start with a niche or did they go broad first? I would research that. That's actually,
Yeah, Sundollars different than us, very different, but we can definitely look at how they got in with students, you know, like, I think it was just yeah, maybe what they started.
well, it's the same in that they have the same,
Yeah.
you have what's called a multi-sided market. So you have to get the students and you have to get the vendors and you have to bring them up simultaneously. And it's that chicken egg issue that you're gonna encounter where until you get enough students, you're not interesting to the vendors. And until you have enough stores using your stuff, then the students, it's like, I don't care. So this is where like picking laundromats, that's or I keep going to, I don't know why I'm going to laundromats, but like picking, I just didn't do laundry. But picking one thing, it's like, it's a tractable problem. You can foresee going to the 10 laundromats or campus, right? Okay.
Actually, you know, ASU has an app for their laundromats. They don't have to, the kids, my daughter just started there
Yep.
in the fall,
Okay.
a month ago. And they have, it's very cool actually. All the laundry is free and they have an app where you can go in, find the laundry in your building and actually know when washers and dryers are available, and you can put your wash in the washer, and then with your app it'll tell you when it's ready and move it up. It's really incredible. And every student has it.
Okay, so maybe you don't start with laundromats.
I wouldn't start with laundry, but I'm just saying, you
No,
want
no,
to talk about something that's really successful.
Yeah.
That is a great model for every kid uses that app. And I am certain that they have advertisements and everything on there.
Right. And so that's something that 30 seconds ago we didn't know, right? And we've just learned something in the course of not even getting out of the building yet, which is interesting and might impact which verticals we approach. Because that may, I mean, if it's truly that pervasive as you say it is, what's the point? Why would we try to make a solution to something that isn't even a problem? So,
Yeah, it's amazing. I just,
What's that called?
what's that called? You know, I don't know. You know how I found out when you go in with your kids at the beginning of the year to pick up their keys and everything? And this is something you guys who are doing college stuff might want to know. The kids go in one side, the parents go in the other, and the kids go in and I don't know what they do, but I went in and they had, people were given mugs, people were giving cups. I found, like I got information for the medical center. I found out information on urgent care. I found out, I mean, there was all kinds of information for mom and dad. And amazingly, it was mom who said to daughter, hey, you need to get this app. This is going to make your laundry a lot easier. And at the same time, they were given pods, laundry pods, and I mean, it was, I'll tell you, I walked around there, I had a bag full of crap for her, and I was, you got this, you got that,
Did she want the bag?
She did not want the bag, but let me tell you, she did many of the things, like there's an app for food. I'll have to ask her about it. I left all that stuff with her, but there is an app that I got for her for a couple different restaurants.
okay. So
Specific at ASU.
you get, basically this is a
Specific
case
at
of
ASU.
customer
It'd
development.
be
right?
interesting to hear the name of that.
You know what? I'll
You don't
ask
mean
her.
Student Insider, do you?
What?
That's Student Insider, right?
You know what, there were a bunch of different things that were there, and this
Let's
arena,
keep going.
Sorry.
In the interest of using this stuff. So yeah, you
Okay, I was gonna ask a question, in regards to you were saying for all college, take what the SunCar did
Yeah.
and research it. So my question is it then beneficial to research other organizations like yourself and
Yes.
try to talk to them and see
It
how they
is.
did it?
It is in the sense that you want to know, like, to the extent you can learn without having to do trial and error, you can like find analogs, and can see, like history teaches us a lot of lessons. It's not necessarily what's going to happen for you, right? If you can look at it and try to understand what happened, and then say, how can we use this info to short circuit our learning going forward, right? That's the mindset you should have towards researching existing things. And I think in this case, $7 could be a really interesting thing, just given that they had to get the students, they had to get the vendors, so you're facing the same challenge. How did they do that? And did they start with a certain niche, like restaurants or whatever, or did they do it law first? Good question.
So, yeah, ASU actually has its own application that links with like the laundry stuff and everything. But from what I remember, it doesn't actually have a feature on the app that shows, deals, student discounts, and the surrounding merchants
Not that
around campus.
last time I looked, it didn't. I mean, it could have like a link to Student Insight, but their setup is totally different than us.
Yeah, because I remember when it launched, there was something to do with deals for students. Because
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the ASU app. I haven't seen that stuff, but we can look at it again.
Okay, so what are you going to do differently based on what we just talked about? Because I'm big on like takeaways. What does this translate to in terms
In
of action?
specifics, the students are how we're gonna go about getting information from merchants and vendors and stuff.
Yeah, what are you going to do
Which one
next?
are you at? Okay,
Yeah, just what are you
I would
gonna
say
do?
like, we're gonna use questions like those four, to go around the businesses. Maybe 10 categories, or go through all the categories, really find which ones need, help, maybe limit it to, you said one. Maybe there's 3 that are like really, are the same, like they all need, attention, or maybe there is just one. And then, try to, limit the amount of categories, and then obviously research things like Student Insight. We've done a lot of research on our competition, but
Okay, it's all still way too abstract. I'm talking like, I'm going to go get an ASU Spirit newspaper, I'm going to see who's currently advertising, and I'm going to go talk to these 3 people tomorrow.
yeah, well, I
Like,
can't.
that's-
I don't know how to do that yet. Obviously, like to be that specific right now, I have to look up what things students use. But I don't know exactly what things students use on campus and stuff.
So I'm telling you to not fixate on, I don't quite know enough about customer discovery to do this, like, or I don't know how to find, like, I'm saying like short circuit that, like get real as fast as you can, go figure out, like, I think the Spirit newspaper, I think that's what it's called, the people that are advertising are obviously interested already in reaching students and they're willing to spend money to do that, so that could be a signal of, hey, these are people that
Go reach out.
potentially, yeah. I would go just like literally try to, don't make any excuses in not talking to people sooner than later. So do that.
Oh yeah, we're on talking to people immediately. That's like our biggest goal. So we have to figure out how to, which is interesting. You said look for publications and who already is marketing. So that's definitely we also see that we have tons of businesses that are already.
You guys might want to look into an app, it's called Whistle, WHISTL, it's an iPhone app, it's specifically issued for restaurants and service. Yeah, WHISTL.
All right, cool. Let's do yours next. And what was your name?
John.
John. Okay, and what's your name?
Jacob.
Jake. Okay, cool. All right, what's your app called?
Crash Pad.
Crash.
Well, that app's called Crash Pad Atlas.
Cool. I actually read your application. I was wondering.
Yeah, we saw that.
Cool. All right.
So in a sense, similar in the light of all college, we are a guide, but we are specifically focused on travelers, people that aren't familiar with the area.
Okay.
And it's not about deals. Deals could come, but it's about guidance in where to spend their time.
Okay.
We're focused mainly on vacation home renters because they don't have the hotel-like services that hotels provide their guests to basically provide them direction, concierge, and brochure stands and everything. So we're charging those people and getting them to download our app and use it as but it's all about to really unearth the local hotspots that aren't near the hotels or not the corporate places you would turn to when you're not familiar familiar with the place.
Okay. So who's your customer?
We have three.
Okay.
We have the local merchant,
Yep.
the traveler, and the property manager or the individual homeowner.
Okay.
And we, like, as a soul of our company, we want to provide the traveler with the best vacation experience possible. And we envision that by what's better than what's local to place, because like you have to get a sense of place while you're on vacation. So I think, see, that's our question for me. Like our problem is, I know one thing that we have to tweak or that we have to get questions from the customer are like what exactly features. Right now, the features that we have are like just based on us traveling, like what would we look for while we're on vacation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really know exactly like what the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is people spending at corporate establishments that they can find back home or something.
Yeah. So there's multiple ways to approach yours. Well, on any of these companies, there's multiple ways, but like you can either start with the people you want to serve and go identify what their problems are, or you can start with what you perceive to be a problem and find out who has that problem. I mean, so your stated problem is that you think people go to places and they don't have a good way to find the gems, basically, like the local spots. Okay.
We're both bartenders, and at Bachelor Square Mall.
Okay.
So we get a lot of travelers. We talk to them a lot. Everyone.
We validated
It's the
that.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
Where do we go for ice cream? Where do we go? We want to go hiking. What's
Where the
good
hiking
hike?
trail at?
You know, so it's there's definitely a need. People are confused, and the current solutions don't do it. Yelp and it's directing them to Subway and whatever. So
that's an awesome, the fact that you guys have that outlet, or and you're still bartenders?
Yeah.
So that's the, like, you guys have a nightly customer development opportunity. That's so incredible. Like, you're there face to face with people in a scenario where they're like, in theory, like a good percentage of them are your prospective customers.
I'd say 50% of the people. You know,
That is such an advantage. You guys, this is like, this is awesome. You have like this nailed. Like that is your unfair advantage, that you have that just constant iterative capability to do that customer development. So, okay, so I haven't gone deeply on your app. I think I looked at the website, but like, what does it do today? Or do you have an app right now?
yeah, you download it.
Okay.
You sign in with social media or create a profile, and then you can sort category, subcategory, and then you can check in,
And
post
geolocation.
photos, but it's geolocating what's nearest to you.
Okay.
That's a ton of sense.
Okay, so I'm a traveler. I got your app. I go to Zite Austin Fashion Square and I check in, and it's now showing me what tourist attractions are around there, or
Well, you check in, and that for other travelers is like, it's just, we call it our travel log, and it's to show like other people say.
It's basically a news
other-
feed.
Yeah.
It's a news feed of travelers.
Okay.
Well, basically what you would do, simulated you arrive at your vacation home, it says download this, you're looking, this is your guide, you download it, pick your category from restaurants to tours to outdoors, and then you kind of filter exactly what you're looking to do.
Okay.
And then it shows what's closest to you based on what you're looking for.
Or another scenario, so say you're staying in Old Town, because most of our properties are in Old Town, and you go to the Phoenix Convention Center for a convention that you came in town for, but you're not near your hotel, and based on location, it'll still show you what's the cool stuff like around your location in Phoenix. So you can be wherever you are in the valley, and we've loaded probably like 400 spots.
Okay. So tell me about the properties. Is your model where you make money when people book properties through you, or
No,
is it-
we're not a booking engine.
Okay.
We kind of want to separate ourselves from that.
Okay.
See, that's like, I think we're in the process of pivoting right now and adding like boutique hotels just to get a hard, like a bigger inventory of travelers coming through. But we get our money initially was going to be on advertising because we validated being in the industry, service industry, that the traveler is a great customer base and merchants are looking for travelers, to spend. So initially to be advertising because we're directly in front of the faces of these customers for that, you know? And, we wanna make it as simple as possible for the traveler, so we're gonna like not charge them, I mean, we could charge them $1 and download, whatever, but yeah, we don't wanna lose any kind of user
Right.
for $1, you know?
Right. So I would say this, it sounds like you have something that's interesting. Like, have you been showing the app, like when people are bartending, like to say, hey, like, check this out, what do you think? And you get
It's only been published for like a week.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've been fixing kinks, we haven't really been we haven't been like telling everybody to download it yet, but
Okay.
it's,
But-
yesterday, we're pretty happy with it.
It doesn't even have to be on the app store, though, to be able to show that person in the bar, like, you could literally have photos on your phone, and
Yeah.
say, like, hey, does this seem like, how would you use this?
Yeah.
So you've already got some validation there,
Yeah.
like, it's not useful. So then, like, how you're gonna, if that's the case, is anyone paying you for it?
Not really.
Okay, so figuring out this, then, you know, revenue, channels, how you're gonna reach those people, those are the questions. This is where the greatest uncertainty right now for you guys lie. So let's help them. What are some customer discovery questions that they need to be asking at the bar? They've got FaceTime, which is freaking awesome. You just have this constant fountain of customer discovery going on. So what are the things that they need to be asking if these are truly their areas of uncertainty?
I would ask the traffic, if they guess themselves, as they come into the restaurant, is this something you would pay for? Because initially, I mean, advertising dollars don't come from a mobile app until you've got millions of users, or at least hundreds of thousands of users, where somebody's willing to spend the money to put their logo or put their ad on the site to say, okay, I need to know how many times is this ad gonna go in front of somebody's face before they'll click through it, or before they might consider doing business with us as
That's not the advertising we're getting paid by, we're getting paid from the local merchants to basically be a destination in our ad.
So they will pay like a monthly subscription fee.
Well, we're working on that, but we would like to make it unique. You know, subscriptions are overplayed. We want to be able to validate and prove that we're bringing them customers before they even pay us.
Okay, oh, no, I understand that.
So
it's
like we're
conversion
trying
marketing.
to
Conversion marketing.
use unique ideas.
So it's almost like a, you know, they need to come in and spend money, but you now need to prove to that merchant that they came in because they were a hotspot for that.
So if I was looking for these customers, I would ask them how they currently find places to go. I mean, we talked about this before, like, is it more about where they're staying or where they're going, you know? And so I would even ask the question like, do they take staycations? I don't know if these people either in town have traveled or they're from here, so how do they currently find it? Do they use the Explore tab on Foursquare? Foursquare likes to think that it's being used, or do they use Yelp, or do they not use anything? So it could start like, oh, we would love a resource, and then that would be your in to say, here's what we're working on, as opposed to, we can buy this, or would you subscribe to this? Or more so like, what are people doing?
See, the issue I'm battling with is that I don't think it's the traveler that we need to talk to.
Yeah,
It's
I would agree with you.
It's the
merchant.
It's not only the merchants, the hotel and the pet owner, because that's the people that are getting the travelers through the doors. They're doing the marketing already. They have functioning business models that are already working that will allow us to grant access to their traveler. You know?
Don't you want to know if the travelers are using it?
Well, we validated that. We
Like,
if it's
Did you ask them if they use it? Like,
Yeah.
one thing I was gonna say is how many, like, look at who you're targeting, like age group, who rents those homes.
Yeah.
And do they even use smartphones? Cause like, my parents, for example, would never, like, they rent places like that and they're not technology, like, technological.
And that's why we pivoted into white labeling from hotels. So it basically just has.
our demographic is like, it is 60 years old, and we just found that out. In the 70 homes we do have, and the average length of stay is like 11 days, so we kind of want to hit more people than just like a slower turnover with older people, you know, because it is numbers, I mean, it is the Arizona market, that's what attracts, you know, but.
Because my parents moved on to the deal side, still, you know, there's an app, so they can go back, so equally it's helpful, I mean, and it will be available at those and stuff.
So they use something like keep
That's just
going to your bar after the server. So you should like, one in a round, have this people go after.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing that's simultaneously advantageous to you could also be leading you down a wrong path too. By getting the same questions repeatedly from people, because inherently if they're in the bar, they're out of town, and they're asking, that's what people do when they're grabbing a drink. Okay, let's try to deconstruct what does their business, what hinges, like what's the success going to hinge on for them? The thing that they haven't figured out yet is this, right? And just thinking,
I honestly think that our success hinges on the pads and the hotels, that the direct access to the user base.
Yeah, because if the traveler goes up to the hotel concierge or the front desk and they do a good job of promoting it, saying, hey, this is really what you need if you're out and about and you go have dinner, but then you want ice cream. This is what you need, because depending on where you go, it's right there in front of you.
what? Let me ask. Because I'm not too familiar with the space, but in hotels where they do have a concierge on site, why do they do that? What's the role?
Biggest role concierge is doing is just making reservations.
Okay.
They're not so much as a guide.
Okay.
They're about setting up a table at Mastro's
Or
a-
tickets
That's the
or
function.
or- yeah,
Yeah,
they're-
that's the function they perform. But why does the hotel even have that person there? I've been to hotels where there's no concierge. So why do some hotels have a concierge? and others
Build brand loyalty and return customers.
don't? Okay.
to make it's just a passion kind of service. Anyone could most people could call or want StubHub and get tickets on their own, but it's just letting someone.
Right. So VRBO people, is that who you're serving, or like people who have vacation homes, whatever? So here's where I think we're starting to dig into what's the real thing. It's for the same reason that some hotels want to add a concierge to give that brand loyalty and to give that like enriched experience to their people and have people come back. I think that's your message to the VRBO people, is that you don't currently have this, and this is something that's going to basically get you repeat business. It's going to spread word of mouth. People are going to tell their friends, "You such a freaking awesome stay with this. I can't believe they totally exceeded our expectations with directing us and helping us get reservations and get to where we need to go." So it's like, that's your customers, the VRBO people. Realistically, all the three that you listed off, that's your main one. The advertising is kind of peripheral. And it seems like to me, the question now is, okay, what are the hypotheses there? VRBO, so VRBOs would benefit from outsourced concierge, basically.
So, but that's a catch-22, because if we're trying to sell these things and they say no, then we don't have the traveler coming in,
You need the traveler to be interesting to them in the same way that he needs a student to be interesting to the merchants. But nothing matters if they don't care about this. Like if the VRBOs are the ones that are going to be paying you, and you can't convince them, like you can't determine, if you can get in front of 10 VRBOs and 8 of them say, oh yeah, totally, if this thing existed, like, yeah, I would love to have this. I would absolutely pay for it because I can see the business benefits to me. I can see how it's going to create repeat business and word of mouth and viral and all that. But if you determine, if you have those 10 conversations and not one of them, they're like, yeah, I don't ever envision paying.
So we have one property manager that manages 65 of our rentals, and then we have one property manager that manages one rental, and then one owner that owns two rentals, and they both want to provide a service. All three of them want to provide a service.
Yeah.
But
that's 3 people too, right? That's like, you need to talk to like 20.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But like, we talked to Andrew and he said limit as many constraints as possible. Like, you want to get users, right?
Yep.
So why are you constraining yourself by trying to sell this product and you're not getting users?
No, get users. I'm not saying don't get users, but I'm saying like where your greatest. It sounds like you've already kind of validated the app. You have this constant fountain of the vacationers passing through you, but your real thing that you need to research now is the vacation rental people. And you get in front of more of them than the travelers that you are getting access to. So,
And hotels.
and hotels. And maybe, so again though, like always best if you can. So the reason for doing hotels is because you don't have enough inventory with the.
Because our demographic for vacation homes is old.
Why is that a problem?
Old people don't use smartphones generally.
Could you
be able to
develop
do
sort of like booklet that you would leave at a house?
We
that's, like,
do
on
have,
paper?
tangible maps.
Okay.
But I mean, those you can only show so much on a tangible map.
Yeah, no, I mean, that may be, so if that's the case, if your solution must be mobile or whatever, and your demographic just doesn't use that, so it's just like what you built, it just can't possibly solve to that customer segment, then I would agree with you need to figure out how to get a different customer segment. And if that means that hotels is the answer, or different vacation rentals, I don't know what it is, but if that's the conclusion that you come to, then absolutely, okay, change that aspect of it.
My parents are like, especially my father is like demented with the amount, like, but they have iPads, right? So if you had like one card in a rental that said, if you guys, want a, local tour or whatever, go to this place. I mean, have you guys done recon on, by saying old people don't use technology? Is that been proven in your?
See,
Our property manager seems to think so.
And I would disagree with that because my dad's 58 years old and he has a smartphone and you can download an app. And I see people that come in the bar all the time and they have smartphones sitting on the table and they're old. They're old. And I'm like,
Careful.
hey, would you download? Would you use this service? And they say, yeah, absolutely.
Even just if they could just type in one easy link, for that moment, and then maybe get attracted to the app or whatever,
Well, and here's the other thing is that, when we say old people, I don't know. Seniors don't use. That's probably. Seniors.
I mean, double my age, I consider old. So.
Yeah, that's fair, it's all good.
So seniors don't use technology. That's a hypothesis, right? At this point, and we know that obviously this is not true across the board. So it constrains which subset of seniors can we reach. Maybe we're only interested in the ones who do use technology.
What percentage there?
Are there enough in that to make
We're
this an
kind of looking
interesting
towards
market?
the future too,
Well, there's
Yeah.
smart people that are traveling, right? They're not like sitting alone.
The more I think about it, they use Verbo or HomeAway or something to find where to stay, then why wouldn't they use
Exactly.
other technology solutions?
If there's a computer in the rental or something, have it on your website, if they don't have a smartphone, they can get on.
Oh, yeah, that's
I don't know.
screensaver.
Yeah, and it says again, this doesn't rule out. To me, this isn't a showstopper for your business at this point. All it is it kind of sculpts how you need to do it. You guys have seen that belly thing, I'm sure, around town. It's at coffee shops, a little iPad, they stand up and you do stuff there. Maybe there's an equivalent here that you provide.
The overhead on that just blows my mind. Like,
Sure.
how do you pay for 10,000 iPads and put them in every single?
$50 a month.
But
They pay $50 a month.
still though.
Yeah, there's capital. I mean, there's some challenges there. Like, I'm not suggesting that is the solution, because early on, now I agree. That's there's just hard capital requirements that do that. So, all I'm saying is that this is just a hypothesis, right? And it's in that we know that it's just not true. But
They probably do spend more money, is that a fair point, would you say, versus the 20-year-old?
See, and one thing that we're not really bringing up because it's not fully developed is we're integrating card-linked offers, which is still in development right now, and that is way above old people's heads. It's discounts directly associated with your credit card. So these old people book these rentals with their credit card, and they can go and not even use our app and spend at these local merchants and still get discounts and still get savings.
so then, what does this do? And let's use seniors. What? Again, this doesn't obliterate their business model, right? It adapts how we have to think about it. And so, how might this shift their customer? That's a really interesting, what you just said, the thing about set it up once, it's just working now on your credit card and you don't have to present an iPad or a coupon or
Coupon,
anything.
show your phone or anything.
It's happening in the background, right? So for that business that he's describing, if the hypothesis that this is true, that seniors don't use technology, then who does his customer become? Maybe the sons and daughters of these people who want to give them a gift, who set them up on this one time, do that for them, and now it's working on their behalf. Might that just change this, right? But it doesn't just like wipe out the business, it just changes how you think about it, how it has to work, right?
Offering rewards bridge the gap.
So again,
And offering rewards bridge the gap between, like, almost break, I mean, rewards have been around for so long. And so, as soon as you said, like, leave cards on the table with vacation rentals, that's immediately what I thought, was like, if there was a reward system, it might get them in to learn more about what it is, as opposed to like, oh my god, it's technology, I don't want to use it.
yeah.
Whereas like, if it were rewards driven, it might be something that they might be, like, they might just fall into because they get the rewards aspect of it,
Yeah.
and it just gets them, does that make sense? Or just-
So you're saying like rewards are timeless, that everyone understands that, and that maybe that, not thinking about it so much as tech, but just thinking about it as like Monopoly reward bucks or something. Maybe, I don't know,
Well, I
that might
mean,
be
then
Travel
get-
miles or something.
travel miles,
Well,
yeah.
you obviously within the crash pad, network.
Right? So
So-
framing it differently instead of like techie framing it, is that maybe, yeah, that's a hypothesis, right?
Do you guys, just so I can think about it, are you more interested in getting more users or people spending more money? Which works better for you? Users?
Well, I would say both simultaneously. They're both of equal importance. Because the more users you have, the more money they're going to be spending.
No, that's what I'm telling you,
I mean,
I think
yeah,
a
if you
senior.
target the more
ten
users you
seniors
have,
Let's just say
spend
it's
more
you want
money.
volume or higher dollar back order sizes. And the answer is you want all this, right? I mean, but start somewhere. Okay, well, so in the interest, because we only have a couple minutes left, what are some hard things that we can, like, after this discussion here with them, what are some hard things we could suggest or come up with, their ideas, hypotheses, experiments, and all that? I think that's probably the best thing to do right now, is I think answering this, like, to me, hang it on this vision of, say it like this, be like, look, there's a reason why the Hyatt has a concierge in their lobby, right? They're not stupid, they do this like that. That's a person they're paying to be there, so there's a value to them in doing that. That same value you're not getting right now as a VRBO. Like, you could put that same thing to work for you in an outsourced fashion that costs you X dollars. Would you pay for that? If we could show that it would demonstrate, more loyalty, more higher dollar purchases, whatever it is, more word of
Savings
mouth,
for the traveler. Like,
savings for the traveler, better customer experience, like all that stuff. If we can demonstrate those things, is that something that would be interested
See,
in?
and that's something we said between us the whole time. Like, we want to build a brand for vacation rentals. We want to be the Hilton for vacation rentals. We want to be, because the property manager that we have, he said the biggest issue is the return customer. And that's kind of where this has been stemming from. Is loyalty in the vacation rental game, because it's pretty much loyalty to the marketplace at the time.
Okay, so that's a hypothesis. Loyalty in vacation rentals therapy. Right? So that's a hypothesis. So here, real quick, let's just tie this off. So that's what you just said is a hypothesis, Jacob. Loyalty in vacation rentals is terrible. So what are the experiments you can actually go to verify this? And the interviews you can do that. Who can you guys talk to this week to get some data points?
Property managers and find out what their return rate is.
Yep.
Maybe there's reviews from those return customers, why? Maybe there's
The ones that did come back?
Or try and reach out to the ones that left reviews and find out if they've come back, and if they have, why haven't they stayed in the same place?
Why not? You didn't have this, or this wasn't, that's why it might be hard.
Yep. Yeah, talk to both if you can get, okay, so definitely talk to the VRBO people. the extent you can talk to the travelers that didn't come back, I think that's a great suggestion. Like, why didn't the ones that came back? Why did you come back? What was it about the experience that made you go with the same person again? I think that's awesome.
Whoever wants to stay cool, keep going. Whoever, if somebody needs to bolt, though, don't feel
No,
feel like
we're,
you're
we're basically done. So
Okay.
I'll wrap up. You guys, I'm actually I'm doing office hours here. Like, I'm basically making myself available to Seed Spot every Tuesday from 3 to 5. So I will be around. Feel free to use me if you think that I could be of help. Here's 3 people that I would suggest you follow on Twitter if you use Twitter. This guy is obviously the godfather of everything, so you just read all this stuff. He's amazing. Tristan's a great guy. I run Lean Startup Circle Phoenix. We meet once a month. If you want to get better at applying lean to your stuff, then I'd suggest attending that. And we've had both Tristan and Patrick. Patrick's based out of Orange County. I've had both of them attend our meetings and like provide personal assistance, which is a huge value. And then Grid 7 is my website. You can read some of the other stuff that we publish there. And otherwise, yeah, I look forward to getting to know you guys. So hopefully this was useful.